Patikawa. Pahari Patikawa has done his education in Rotterdam School of Management, Erasmus University, and he is also a registered tax consultant. His career tracks from tax analyst, and now he's also the credit analyst and trainee coordinator of Indover Bank. He has also been a managing director for Aras Pensiun BV. He's a super guy. I mean, I've seen his LinkedIn, and he's very a guy that you need to understand what he's going to present. So the second speaker is Ibu Desi Rutan PhD Versa. She has done her education of Doctor of Philosophy, PhD field of study, International Business, Trade, Commerce, Economic Geography, and her career is she is currently the has been a chairwoman of Ikatan Ilmuwan Indonesia International, and she is also now I'm seeing her page. She is managing partner for the UK and the Netherlands of Unimatrix UG International as a business development and marketing manager, and also of the Gifted Minds International School, the Netherlands. And the last speaker is Professor Roel Rutten. He is a researcher at School of Social and Behavioral Science, Tilburg University, and also visiting professor at Newcastle Business School, Northumbria University. And those are the three speakers of today. And hereby, I will explain the three rules for the participants during the session. So first of all, if you may, please unmute, please mute your speaker. If you're not asking a question, please mute, because I can still hear some echoing in my sound. And then the second house rule is, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or please put on the chat, and then I will ask it for you if it's in Indonesian, and I will translate it for you in English. Yes. And the third and last thing, so all of the participants will just present all of the topics in one train move. So first of all, I would start with Pak Hari, and then the second we will start with Ibu Desi, and the last we will start with Professor Rul. And then after the presentation, you can have a Q&A, sesi tanya jawab. But in the sesi tanya jawab, questions and answer, you need to put your question first in the chat, and then I will say if you may ask directly, or I will ask it for you. Is that okay for everyone? I hope it does. So, well, we have now 32 participants. So I will give the floor now to Pahari Patikawa. At your time and your present, please share your incredible topic.
Thank you very much, Mr. CD. Hello, everyone. My name is Harry Patikawa. I'm a financial business consultant in the Netherlands. I think I need to share some document in order to make it easier to discuss with you. Can you see my presentation here? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. So I would like to share my topics here. It's about income taxation for foreign self-employed persons in the Netherlands. So it is in line with this seminar, I think. So imagine that you have a good idea. You want to set up a business in the Netherlands. So then what would be the taxation of your business? Because it is important, it affects your cash flow, it affects your situation in the Netherlands. Yes, for that, we go to 3 topics, because taxation is based on the legal in this case, a visa for self-employed. So if you go to the Netherlands, you have to have a valid visa to set up your business. The second one is the choice of legal form. It is important. It affects your tax return, your tax form. And then after having these two topics, we will then discuss and talk about income taxation for self-employed in the Netherlands. So let's we move to the first topic. I will just put it in general view, so we are not going into detail. First of all, if you want to set up a business in Netherlands, you need a visa. This visa can be requested to the Dutch government in the Netherlands. The Dutch government will then test your request on three parts. The first one is our personal experience, education, entrepreneurship, and work experience, because the government want to know the chance of success and the chance of failure. The second one they're going to test is your business plan, how you plan your business, how your strategies is, and how you acquire new customer, how you plan regarding to competition. So they will look to your market analysis, product, service, price, organization, and most important as well is your financing. So in practice, I have helped a lot my customer to set up this business plan. Most of them also in the past request visa to request to set up the business in the Netherlands. So the third items they are going to test the added value for the Netherlands. So your products or services must be or should be innovated, and you should create jobs in the Netherlands, and you should increase the investment in the Netherlands. Further about visa for self-employed in general, they will request a kind of minimum capital. It depends on your situation and our situation, but the most important thing is you will or we will have a minimum gross income on monthly base of 1,273.71 monthly base. So imagine that we do not have customers yet in the Netherlands. We do not have a contract yet. So I think it should be better to put some deposit on your Dutch bank account, at least 15,000. I recommend my customer in the past to have at least 18,000. Of course, you can then use this funding for your business operation. This application cost 1,416. For detail about the request, you can go to this link. You can find the answer of your questions. We go now to the choice of legal form. So then imagine you have already get the visa to do business in Netherlands. You go to the Netherlands, you arrive at the Schiphol airport, and now you registered your business at the Chamber of Commerce, or in Indonesia we know Kamar Dagang. So there are three general legal form in practice. The first one is sole proprietorship. This basically one-man business. So one person is liable for all liabilities. The second one is partnership. Partnership consists usually two men or three men. And the third one is private limited companies. This is you can compare this with perusahaan terbatas in Indonesia. So allow me to discuss only the sole proprietorship because it is most common, it is mostly used. Most businessmen started with this legal form. So it is also interesting to know the tax facilities from this legal forum. After having those two points, let's now discuss about income taxation for self-employed in Netherlands. It is important because it affects your cash flows, it affects your status in the Netherlands. It is imperative to know basic what are you going to pay and your position in the Netherlands. So income tax in the Netherlands consists of three items. First, income tax, this one. This is basically the source of funding of the government to finance general publics, for instance, school, education, military. And the second one, you have public insurance premiums. Public insurance premiums, you could see this as a contribution of individual to the total welfare of the people in the Netherlands. The third one is insurance contribution. This is the base for financing the private health insurance for every individual. So I think it is important to have some example. I have here a small example. It's not a complicated one. I think it is better and it can be understood better if we do this by having some example. Allow me to ask you, do you see this Excel file? Everybody see this?
Not yet.
Not yet?
Not yet. Still the PowerPoint.
I think, Hari, you need to close down your PowerPoint and then
yes.
switch it to your Excel.
Yes. Yes, does everybody see this? Yes?
Yes.
Yes. It is not complicated. It's the most common one. I think it's better to have some example. Otherwise, it cannot be followed because tax is very boring. And if you just talk about taxation, it could be hard to understand. So allow me to have this simple calculation. It concerns 2020 regulation. For our example, imagine that you have set up your business, you generate a handsome income, you have gross income from self-employed of 60,000. So the most question we have in the practice is, what will be taxed? Is it the 60,000 or maybe other amount? So if it is taxed on the 60,000, then you would pay huge of taxes. But in Netherlands, it does not work like that because the government support the small enterprise with some number of tax facilities. So if you see this, number 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, this is a most common facilities you could have if you have business in the Netherlands. It is for businessmen or for self-employed who work full-time for his or her businesses. Number 3, for instance, it is called self-employed allowance. For 2020, it amounts 77,030. So it will deduct your taxable income and eventually reduce your tax paid. So this amount is 7,030, but due to the corona crisis, this amount for the time being has been reduced. But for our example, just put the 7,030 in our example. And the second facility, you have small investment reduction. Number 4, for instance, you have established your business in the Netherlands. You have invested in chairs, for instance, in computers, in office equipments. You have invested 20,000. The government provides facilities for this in the form of tax deduction. So the tax deduction in this case is 28% on that 20,000. So you have deduction of 5,600. This amount deduct your gross income from self-employed, so eventually reduce your tax paid. Number 5 here, we have starters allowance. Starter allowance you will get once in your time is around 2,000. It also deduct your taxable income. And number 6, you have deduction for partner contribution. So for instance, you bring your wife or your partners to the Netherlands to help you to manage your business. So the government also provides some facility for this. If your partner, your husband or your wife work full-time for your company, there's some deduction for partner contribution. This is around, this is 4% on 60,000 on the gross income from self-employed. So you have 2,400 as additional deduction of your gross income from self-employed and eventually reduce your tax paid. Number 7 is imperative to mention because as an entrepreneur, as a self-employed, you do not build your pension. In comparison, if you work at a company, your company will arrange your pension scheme. That's why the government of Netherlands provides small enterprises with these facilities. It's called allowance pension. It is not permanent facility. So if you are retired or you liquidate your company, you have to put this facility back into your income. So therefore, it is interesting to have this allowance as well for the time being in order to reduce your tax paid. So then, if you look to the number 8, your income from self-employed after reducing tax facilities is reduced significantly to this amount, 36,967. Number 9, there are additional deduction. So there are a lot of deduction in the Netherlands. Additional deduction is called reduction for small, medium enterprises. It is for all entrepreneurs, including part-time entrepreneurs, because here is only for full-time entrepreneurs. For small and medium enterprises, also part-time entrepreneurs can have this facility. So it's 14% over the 36,967. So eventually, your taxable amount is only 31,792. So this amount is subject to taxation in Netherlands. So not 60,000, but 31,000 roughly. Now the question is how you will bill tax, how you pay tax in the Netherlands, and how the structure of taxation in the Netherlands. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 items. First is income tax. It depends on the size of your profit, but in this case, it is 37.35% on your taxable amount. So you pay tax, we pay tax 11,874 to the Dutch government. And then you have we have public insurance premiums. Number 13 is, so the public insurance premiums consist of 3 items. The first one is public pension. The tariff is 17.90% of the taxable amount. So this is for all people So for instance, if you retired, you also get this this amount for your pension. The second one is public insurance for family who lost their cause, a winner due to disease, for instance. For instance, if a family with one working member and this member, for instance, passed away, and also in Netherlands, the government provide you with fundings. That's why everybody pay this contribution. The third one, number 15, it's called public insurance for people becoming disabled. So also the government support people who become disabled. That's why everybody has to contribute. And this tariff is 9.65% on the taxable income. The last one, as I mentioned earlier, there are three types of taxes. The third one is insurance contribution. Insurance contribution is the source of funding of insurance health in the Netherlands. The tariff is 5.45% over the taxable amount. So at the end, income tax and public insurance premiums is 22,397. You can look this under number 18. But we will not stop on that because the Dutch government provide more facilities for starters, for self-employed. You can see this under number 19 and 20. Number 19 it's called deduction, general tax deduction. So everybody who pays tax get these facilities. There is some formula here, but in this example, we get discount of 2,083. The last one, labor discount, is for everybody who works. In this case, we get some labor discount of 3,423. So at the end, total amount we should pay to Dutch government is only 60,891. So it is roughly 28%, 28.15% on the 60,000. So it is roughly the same, in line with the tax rate in Indonesia. Yes. I think it is
Okay.
what I would like to share with you, and I give back the word to the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hari Patikawa. It's a nice tax introduction of you. So I will request for you that wants to invest in Holland. It's mostly the same like in Indonesia. So please invest if you want to become an entrepreneur. It's not that expensive as we think it should be. So it's the same. And Pak Hari Patikaw can also assist you, yeah, Pak? You can also assist future entrepreneurs that are willing to invest in Holland. So Pak Hari Patikawa can make that bridge for you. So thank you, Pak Hari Patikawa. We'll reserve the questions later on. I see that there are some questions, but I will keep it for the later on. So let's continue with our second speaker of today. So we will give the floor to Ibu Desi. Well, the floor is yours, Ibu Desi.
Okay, thank you very much for all the participants so far. We've been hearing a very technical and very, let's say, insightful information from Mr. Harry. So I suggest if you're very interested in building up your company in the Netherlands, you can always contact H Consulting, Haha Consulting, and then we'll be helping you in line with Mr. Harry Patikawa. Right. Thank you, moderator. My name is Desi Rutens. I've been living in the Netherlands of now is going to 8 years. Before I lived in the UK for nearly 12 years there. And Mr. Harry already explained the details of the importance of having an accountant for your startup business in the Netherlands. But now I would like to, let's say, redefine the theme of our talk today. We are going to talk about Indonesia and the Netherlands, opportunities and the challenges. And first of all, I would like to sort of to bring your understanding into these definitions, because when we talk about startup, nowadays it might be slightly different compared to the traditional startup. And in the Netherlands, the idea of startup is a spillover from the innovation, creativity, enterprise, and also the push factor that we got from the Industrial Revolution 4.0. And because of the pandemic, everything is booming into digital. But to be honest with you, this phenomena has been happening since to be honest with you, this is from my own overview, since 2014, the rise of startup, particularly the things that I'm going to talk about, okay? So bear in mind, when we talk about the startup, are we talking about the traditional startup, or are we talking about the latest startup? Or what is the latest startup? The traditional, you can say, yeah, you can build up any kind of business in the field of, for example, Horeca, we call it here, hotel, restaurant, or cafe, or restaurant, whatever. But when I'm going to talk about the startup now, it's much more based on digital. So the platform we bring into the digital ecosystem. And that's the thing that we would like to explore more between Indonesia and in the Netherlands. What are they? Most of them, they are, particularly from the Netherlands perspective, they are much more interested in the sector of agri-food, horticultural, water and marine, because this is a very famous country for the water management, and also their technicalities, and biopharmaceutical, also the health sector, logistics, because Netherlands is, let's say, a border country between the Germany, Belgium, and Luxembourg, and this is the gate for Schengen countries, if you like. A chemical industry, bear in mind, in Rotterdam, this is one of the at least 4 largest port, which has a very complex chemical refinery in Europe. So this is more lucrative for the chemical industry. And energy. Energy in the Netherlands, they're much more concerned on the wind, hydrogen, and solar. But also when we talk about the creative industry, we are talking about their Dutch design, the architecture, the product, the fashion is also booming here over the last, let's say, 8 years or so. And last but not least, the traditional high-tech industry. Bear in mind, in the Netherlands is the base of Philips. And if you go to Eindhoven, it used to be called City of Light, but I'll leave it to Professor Rutten to talk about his Dutch history and the policy, if you like. And we also have ASML, one of the largest blue chip, and they are based in the Netherlands, in the southern part of the Netherlands. You have heard about the tax, and that is very, very important or crucial elements in the ecosystem, if you like. But what about the other actors? What I would like to mention, the actor itself is the businessman, the entrepreneur, and the you can call yourself a startup, but if you want to go for let's say the latest stage of your business life cycle, who knows, you can be scale up. So in the Netherlands, we are not talking about the startup per se, but we also will help you to be a scale up companies and hopefully to be mature companies. So when we talk about startup, there is an industrial sector for sure, and there is a need of capital and finance, and the role of incubators and business accelerators. What are they and who are they? Most of them, when I look at the ecosystem in the Netherlands, they are, let's say, the mentor, the business mentor, and also the accountant plays role in the incubator and accelerators, yeah? And the market access, so bear in mind, whether you call it very smart economy or very, digital economy, at the end of the day, this kind of, let's say, macroeconomy still a place to meet the supply and demand. And how can you get the market access? How is your marketing strategy? And the last but not least, the role of the networks and also the talents, how to find a talents. And Pak Hari already mentioned about creating job. If you want to be a startup here, they will also make a scrutiny to find out whether you can create a job or not. Okay, so I've mentioned about the element of the ecosystem, the actor, the network, the system, but also let's talk about their preference. When you talk about startup nowadays, their preference, I've mentioned about the sectors that they would like to focus on. They are much more talking about the circular economy. They are talking about the sustainability to bring the, I don't know whether you have heard about the donuts economics, try to be a balance between the industrial per se and also the ecosystem, and to be more humanized. They try to tackle the climate change. So there are a lot of political, let's say, aspect that you need to think about, because at the end of the day, if you want to get funded by the investor, and I'm not just talking about the traditional investor like the banks, because nowadays you talk about the venture capital, yeah, business angels or hedge funds. They want to know whether your investment will make an impactful investment. They want to know whether it's going to be more environmental, it's going to be social impactful, and what about the governance things. All these consequences will help them to make a decision, okay, I'm going to fund you or not. In the Netherlands, if you look at Randstad, let's say the Amsterdam, Utrecht, Rotterdam, the big cities, each of them, they have their own startup ecosystem. They are both, I can call it on the strategy, digital and offline. When you log into this ecosystem, it's marvelous. You can have what we call it a deal room. So first you need to sign up your company, but please don't sign up when you are not ready. You know, as Pak Hari said, you need to prepare your business proposal, business plan. You must equip yourself with a good, let's say, a structure in terms of finance, law. Do not cheat them based on the, let's say, low registration, because it will affect on your responsibility, but also your rights, the thing that you can claim, okay? And I'm not sure about Indonesia, but this is the most important challenge that Indonesian government or the ecosystem in the government has to provide. Law enforcement, but also financial support, as well as the tax regulations. So when you go, for example, I pick up the case of Amsterdam. They have an Amsterdam startup. At least Amsterdam is a home, it's a hotbed, we can call it, at least 1,200 startup in Amsterdam. And then at least 350, they become scale up. And then around 250, they become sort of multinational enterprise after certain journeys. And within that ecosystem, you can see there are at least 3 stages of the companies. First, they call it seed, BG, ZAD, because they are just startup, you know, and then they will go for early growth, and then late growth, and then mature. And then there you can choose what sort of investor that you want to connect with. And this is, everything is done by digital. And if you go to Rotterdam, the government there is also, let's say, pursuing the Rotterdam innovative Rotterdam, yes, we can, something like that. But most of them, they're talking about being digital, being innovative, being entrepreneur. And that's the common sense of the, not just the policy from the central government, but also the local, regional and the local government. This is the thing that will be dealt by Professor Rutten later. So that's the thing, the startup, the scale up, and the local economic policy plays around. And this ecosystem is beautiful, beautiful. But I would like to say, if Indonesia want to copy or want to learn from this kind of ecosystem, please don't have too much interference from the government. Because bear in mind, if you remember the economists of law, there's invisible hand, laissez-faire, laissez-faire. Let this ecosystem grow by itself first. At least the government should provide with regulation, particularly tax, And also the, for example, the IPR, this is very, very crucial. So there is no sabotage here and there. But if you think about the ecosystem, for example, a garden, you don't want to interfere too much, because let the, of course, you set up the ecosystem, but let those flowers and let the insects play around. And then you can have a beautiful, ecosystem, mutual benefit for all the plants, but also for the animals there. And same goes with the business ecosystem here. I've seen, some of the ecosystem in Amsterdam and Rotterdam, and even in the South, they are not merely centralized in the big cities. And what about in Indonesia? Because in Indonesia, most of the business activities and business decision-making process happens in Java. So if you want to create a similar ecosystem, well, luckily in the Netherlands, most of the cities are very well connected to business access. So it doesn't matter whether you are in the south, in the north, or in other parts of the Netherlands, you can always create this kind of ecosystem. And this is one of the agenda of each municipalities in the Netherlands, at least in 12 provinces. And when you talk in Europe, yes, of course, you can see, UK is one of the very well-known ecosystem place, if you like, but since we have a Brexit, let's focus on Schengen. Let's not talk about the UK. In Germany, you have at least 3 cities, which is very well known for the business ecosystem. For startup, you can say Berlin, because it's cheap, but it's sexy. So when you talk about the working space, this is a co-working space. So nowadays in most of the European cities, they convert the old buildings into a sort of a new center for creating sustainable entrepreneur, sustainable digital, all the startup, you name it. If you log into the system, this is marvelous. And in that sense, I think I would like to stop my talk here, but I just want you to be clear what sort of definition that you are going to talk about here, particularly with Indonesia and the Netherlands, because there is overlaps. When you talk about the startup of the Dutch company in circular economy, they are much more heavily invested in technology. So, for example, what about Indonesia? Because they are still, let's say, manual, and of course, they want to open a lot of work opportunities for Indonesian workers. So those things, but I believe the things that we can learn and we can help each other to sort of to fill the gaps. And this is a great opportunity for Indonesian, let's say, startup people, and also for the Dutch startup people who wants to, let's say, invest or start collaborating with their partners in Indonesia. Okay, be very clear what sort of startup, which sector, and then how much would you like to start invest? Because here in the Netherlands, based on this startup ecosystem, I've seen several of them, 0 to 10 million 10 million euros. They're still categorized as a small startup with the numbers of employee around 30 to 50. And then if they can sort of grow for the next 4 years in terms of capital or equity, and then in terms of their services, they might move to the other level, which is scale up. I think that's it from me as sort of the introduction about this team. And I'll leave the next lecture to Professor Rutten. Thank you.
Thank you, Budesi. It was really interesting, very insightful. So if you might have heard that Ibu Desi and the team, Haha Consulting, can offer you to bridge your opportunity to gain greater market access to Europe from Holland. Well, that's the fact. And one of the fact that I also like to say that Indonesia people in Holland, well, we have 1 million people there. So the atmosphere of Indonesian feeling, it's there. So don't worry. We have a very strong bond of Indonesian diaspora, and like Ibu Desi and many others, we can help you. And so we come to our last speaker of today, but it's not yet. We have Professor Rule. He will explain you how to do it. So feel free, and the floor is yours, Prof. Rule.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the invitation. A pleasure to be here. And I can confirm that outside of Indonesia, the best place to be in Indonesia, is here in the Netherlands, in Belanda, because there's indeed so many Indonesians here and so much also cultural heritage of Indonesia that's here, and we're happy with that. Yeah, my talk, I'm a scientist, I'm a researcher, so I'm going to tell you a little bit about how science looks at the whole idea of ecosystems. Ecosystems are important because even when you are an entrepreneur yourself, you will not be able to do everything on your own. You need support from a network, from the business networks, from the government. So an ecosystem, a system is something that has several interacting parts. And when you talk about business ecosystems, those interacting parts are, of course, companies, the business community. It's the education system, it's schools. It is the government, obviously, that has an influence on business. And it is also research centers, because for many companies, they depend on technologies to make their business, to improve their business. Desi mentioned Eindhoven. Eindhoven is one of the high-tech regions in the Netherlands, also in Europe, the home of Philips. And lots of businesses depend on technology development to improve, to innovate, to become better. So what is the role of all of these interacting parts in an ecosystem? Well, obviously, research, that's about making new technological developments. And that may be important for you as a small business, because you want to improve your business all the time. You cannot develop new technologies yourself. So you are dependent on technologies that someone else oftentimes develops for you. And that can be something very complicated, can also be very simple. I mean, nowadays with the corona lockdown, the pandemic, contactless payment, digital payment is becoming more and more important. And also small businesses are now setting up, getting devices for contactless payment, portable devices for contactless payment. So you can go to customers, deliver your products, and make them pay. You can pay them at your door. These are innovations that you can't develop yourself, but you need access to them. Of course, the business community, that's your job as an entrepreneur. You need to have a good idea, you need to have a plan, and you need to market your own product. That's important. Education is important, because particularly when you are growing, you need well-educated people who can help you in your business, and it's helpful to work with interns who are still at school doing their education and who want to get some experience before they graduate. So having connections with schools also for small businesses can be very helpful. And finally, the government can play a very important role. Pahari talked a lot about how that works on the tax end, but there are other functions that the government needs to fulfill. I'll talk about a few of them. Yes, indeed, subsidies, loans, they can all be very important. Tax breaks can be very important. Particularly innovation is very expensive. Also for big companies like Philips, innovation is very expensive, and innovation can fail. Most innovation projects actually fail. You never hear about them. Companies spend a lot of money in developing new products, new technologies, and most of them never make it to the finish line. In that sense, when you look at what's happening now with pharmaceutical companies developing vaccines against COVID, in a way we're very lucky, because all of the vaccines that have been developed so far seem to be very effective. But that's because much of the basic research has already been done. This coronavirus, the COVID virus, is not the first coronavirus that we know. There's several been around for quite a while. We understand the virus, we understand how it works. So we could do some applied research almost immediately. But particularly when you do fundamental research, it's risky, it costs a lot of money, and lots of products fail. Pharmaceutics are very expensive because of all the medicines that would try to develop but never made it, and they cost a lot of money too. So subsidies, tax breaks, loans are all very important. But there are other things that the government also can do to facilitate your business, and they have to do, for example, with infrastructure, digital infrastructure. In most countries, companies are dependent on the digital infrastructure that the government provides, and also the physical infrastructure. You need a good road network and logistical network to get to your customers, that your suppliers can get to you. And when that's a problem in the Netherlands, you can see the problem also in Indonesia, that your country is much more congested than the Netherlands. And that's puts a brake on business, because it makes your connections to customer less secure. So the role of government in ecosystems is to put in place all these facilities to make sure that you have a good education system, that you can have well-educated employees, that there is a good digital and physical infrastructure, and that of course there's the tax breaks and everything in place. A final thing that I'd like to mention here is that the government can also be very helpful in connecting you as a business to other business or to research centers. And the Eindhoven region is a good example of this. We have, in the Eindhoven region, you have lots and lots of small and medium-sized manufacturing firms. And all of those firms have to be innovative in one way or another, but you cannot innovate alone. To give you one example from a completely different background, if you want to develop a cow stable, just to have cows as a farmer, which is environmentally friendly, that's becoming more and more important. The manure of the cows, the cow poo, it has to be collected somewhere to make sure it doesn't get into the environment, because that pollutes the environment, and has to be processed. Well, that's not just simply a cow stable. That requires multiple companies to design the cow stable. You need to work with technology, you need to work with concrete, you need to work with iron, you need to work with software. So you need several companies sit together to design such an environmental friendly cow stable before you can actually build that. And how, when you are a metal company, how do you find these partners? How do you know who to talk to? You probably don't know them. And that's where things like a Chamber of Commerce, an innovation center can be very important. If you have a good idea, you need partners to realize that idea. And to have a well-equipped network of chambers of commerce and innovation centers is very helpful for you to find those partners. I was talking about Philips earlier on, and ASML is one of the big companies in the Netherlands and worldwide. They also need small and medium-sized companies to work with them, because Philips, even though it's a big company, doesn't specialize in every technology it needs. So also smaller companies need to work with Philips, and even Philips doesn't spend a lot of time in finding all its partners itself. It goes through intermediary organizations such as a Chamber of Commerce to find them. What is helpful, particularly in the Eindhoven region, is that you have, when you look for help to find business partners, that these people are somehow independent. They're government funded, but it helps when they're independent brokers. So, for example, the Eindhoven region has set up an organization called a stimulus organization, which is also partially funded by the European Union. It's partially funded by the national government, by the regional government, but it's completely independent of the government. And the person chairing the organization has himself experience as an entrepreneur. So he speaks the language of the business community. He's funded by the government, but independent of the government. So he is seen as a sort of a neutral, His organization is seen as a neutral organization that you can turn to as a business, and you will get help from them. The stimulus organization, it helps you to develop your innovation proposals. As a startup business, you need to come up with a business plan, but also when you want to develop your products, when you want to innovate, you need to do that on the basis of a plan. That's difficult to develop, particularly when you're a small firm. This organization, the stimulus organization, will help you with that. You need to find funding for your project. There are all sorts of subsidy schemes. The stimulus organization will also help you file an application for funding, for subsidies, government subsidies, because also that is difficult. And not all small entrepreneurs have the skills, the administrative skills to make a good application. Same as you go to a tax consultant when you return your tax form. That's a special skill that not everyone has. And when you need partners to do your innovation with and you don't know where to find them, then also the stimulus organization can help you find your partners. And that is when you really have an ecosystem, when there is support that you can call on as an entrepreneur, and when you don't have to figure out something yourself. This is something that, of course, gradually emerged over the years in the Netherlands, in the Eindhoven region. If you would come back 30, 35 years ago, this network was much less developed. What happened sometime in the early 1990s is there was another big economic crisis in Europe, in Western Europe, also in the Netherlands, with the rise of low-cost manufacturers from, amongst others, Indonesia. Up till then, businesses in the Netherlands had been trying to compete on low cost. And then all of a sudden, there were companies from China, from Indonesia, from Vietnam producing at much lower cost, eroding your competitive advantage. So they needed to come up with innovations rather than low cost production. And from that time, the government and the business community have developed this ecosystem, this network of support around business to make the economy grow. I think I'd like to leave it to that, so we have some time for questions. I hope you found this insightful, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. And I'm seeing one question already. Can you mention what are the organizations that can help us to fund business? Well, there is one organization that many people, many small businesses in the Netherlands can call on. It's the Chamber of Commerce. It is a one-stop that you can look for support, and if they can't help you immediately, they'll be able to refer you to other organizations that can help you. You can also call in, just as you have tax advisors, you also have subsidy advisors. You have to pay them a commercial rate, but there are also companies that can help you find subsidies, schemes that you can apply for to get funding. I think these are a couple of important things that you can think of. I'd like to give it back to the organizer at this point.
Thank you for your wonderful insight, Prof. It's I cannot stop staring at your lips. All these wonderful things that you say. I mean, okay. So I have noticed some takeaway message from you, like research can fail, but you need to come back. And the second one, Eindhoven is the Silicon Valley of Holland. So for you entrepreneurs from Indonesia or that wants to invest in Holland, so this is your time to do it. And well, feel free to contact us, like Ibu Desi mentioned, to Haha Consulting, or you can directly contact to Ibu Desi also. And now we come to the section of Q&A. So we have here 4 questions. So Prof already answered one, but it's okay. So we have 3 questions for Pak Hari, but other speakers can also respond to it. So Pak Hari, the first question is, how can we promote our Indonesian local product to Netherlands? I have a bamboo craft and want to explore more of the opportunity to do export. Can you share your views and experience about how to enhance local product? By Sultan.
Yes, thank you. This is a very specific question regarding bamboos. I think the best way, one of the strategies, is to have some agent of representative in Holland, because in the current situation, bamboo is different than compared to maybe 10 of 20 years ago. So the market is changing. Uh, so I do not know exactly really how to deal that, but I think it is best if you have some agent here. And the second alternative is to try to find some number of companies in Netherlands that can help you, and then you can then contact them. You promote yourself, you organize your website, for instance, your media social, so that these companies knows you. I know some Indonesian exporter. They just organize their website and they contact the distributor here in the Netherlands, and after that they can can close the deal. It will take time, but I think that's what I could answer for this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Pahari. Maybe Budesi, you can add on to the answer. Promoting bamboo in Holland, what to do?
Yeah, I mean, bamboo is one of the organic item which is on demand, if you like. Even, well, I have to say this, whether you like it or not, even there's one German company, they made the underwear for men from bamboo's fiber, because it's very, environmental things. So the best thing, basically, you can contact Double H Consulting, and then we can help you further there. But to be honest with you, finding the right partner, as Pak Hari mentioned, the partner, but particularly the distributor, but also the logistic. Because when you want to ship over your products to the Netherlands, you have to deal, well, this is my banking areas thing. You have to do what we call as a syndicate banking. You need to open a letter of commerce, LC, in order to deal with these things, all the export documentation and everything. So I suggest, I think you better contact us through the Double H Consulting, and we would be happy to assist you from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Budesi. And Prof. Rao, maybe you have a little bit ads for the...
Yeah, sure. Sure. I mean, I think the first thing you need to do when you manufacture bamboo furniture is to think of what kind of furniture are you producing? What market are you aiming for? Are you aiming for cheap products for sort of the bottom end of the market? Are you playing on that you sell craft products for a bit more higher end of the market? Are you just going for convenience? These are really simple to use, easy furniture. Or is it more something like playing part of the sustainability drive, the authenticity, close to nature drive? I mean, that's something you need. What kind of furniture, what kind of a market do you have in mind? And then Pahari is completely right. You need to find, and this is much easier said than done, you need to find contacts in the Netherlands that can help you sell your products. You will not have a sales network straight away. That's very costly to develop that yourself. So you need people, intermediaries, representatives, stores that will sell your product, but you can only contact them if they know what you want to sell. If you have a good idea of what kind of products you are selling them, so they know how the market is and how to market them.
I just want to add something.
Well, thank you.
If I may say, Mr. Moderator.
Sure.
I've seen this kind of pattern. Most of the Indonesian producer, they would like to sell their things, particularly the convenient products. I'm not talking about the high-tech products. It's just something, product rindu, makanan Indonesia, and they end up just selling them via social media without any legalization. And if you really serious to take your business further, I mean, yeah, for the, let's say, first or second months, you can do some introduction via social media, fine. But bear in mind, if you want to establish your business activity legally, rightfully in the Netherlands, so I suggest that you do it correctly. Because after that, as Pak Hari mentioned, you can claim sort of the rights and you can do sort of your responsibilities here in the Netherlands, rather than you just selling via social media, via. So I think it is rightfully mandatory to make everything established. The first important thing is your legal status. And then the second one, we can sort of build up official partners with your counterpart in the Netherlands. And then I'm sure by having this conversation with your partners in the Netherlands, they can provide you with a local context, what sort of design, what sort of taste that you know, the Indonesian bamboo can enter and can penetrate the market of the Netherlands. And then you can focus on your marketing strategy as well as your operational strategy. But please don't just hang up, you know, doing online business without any legal entities, because at some point it might backfire on you.
Okay, really nice insight. So we have our second question, but it's my fault. It should be like the first also ask personally. So I will give the session now to Henky to ask himself. So Henky, would you please to ask your question? Henky, you're
Oh,
here?
sorry. Yeah, actually, I have written down my questions, but I can repeat it. So my question to Pak Hari: in your opinion, which one is better, starting up small business in Indonesia or to expand it to Netherlands, or starting up business in Netherlands directly? Thank you.
Yes, hello. Can I ask? Can I reply on that?
So Henky asked if it's better to create the startup in Indonesia first and then come to Holland, or just beginning in Holland.
Yes, that also depends on the product and service, and also depends on whether if you open a business in the Netherlands, whether it adds value to your total business. So it also depends on many aspects. If you open a business in Netherlands, you have to have some kind of permanent establishment, and it costs also some money. Whether it could provide value to your total business, it also depends on your situation. So again, it is depends on your product and service, basically. That would be my answer.
Thank you. So is it okay, Henky? Are you pleased with the answer, or do you need some add-on?
Yes.
Maybe you
okay.
can provide your, give me your, maybe your, what kind of product and services you would like to introduce?
Let's say in digital startup like fintech or
Yes.
agriculture sector.
Yes, digital setup is not expensive. I think if you want, if you think that you can get more customers in the European Union, so because if you invest in Netherlands, it means you invest also in European countries, and if you think that the number of customers in the Netherlands are sufficient, and you can get benefit, for instance, tax benefit and customers, then I think it would be also defendable to open the business in Netherlands for this kind of business. But if you think you have, if you want to open the producing companies, so it is another story. So for that, I think it would be better to open Indonesia due to cost and price consideration. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So Pahari will continue with the next question directly. Could you explore, if any, tax reduction policy or subsidy or fiscal incentive due to pandemic for startup business in next midterm? Example, within the next 2 years, by Arif Mutakin. So, Mas Arif, you can chat directly now.
Yes, for the time being, it is not announced yet, but there are some voices that want to, for instance, write up all debts of the companies who have difficulties due to the lockdown. But I expect in the coming months, I think the government will provide some policy to stimulate the economy. But currently, it has not been known or announced. What we have at this moment is some kind of support for the governments for the companies who have difficulties due to the lockdown. So they have some fundings, for instance, to finance fixed cost and employee cost. So I think that should be my reply at this moment.
Okay, thank you, Pa. So we have our fourth question. Rene, is it Rene or is it, sorry, R de Fretes, the Fretes. Is it Rene, or you can ask directly to the speaker? Feel free. Hello?
I'm sorry, I had to unmute. Yes, do you hear me?
Richard, sorry.
My
I
name is
thought your
Richard.
name was Rene.
I'm Richard.
Feel free. Okay, hi,
Hi,
Pa Richard.
Budesi. Yes, since I read the question about promoting Indonesian products in the EU, in the European Union, and since 2016, I was already in Semarang and I talked with SMEs and owners of small products. And they say everybody wants to export to the Europe, but they forget that there are regulations here in Europe. And what Budesi directly said, that you have to organize it well and consider the legal requirements we have. For one example is that the product has to be tested. They need a CE brand. They need quality. I had a wood carver who said he had a nice order from Europe, but he had to have a certificate that the wood was safe, not illegally chopped. But he got it from his own garden. It was his own tree for centuries. So he said, I have to hire a lawyer to organize this for me, but then the profit is more than what I have. So the costs are higher than the profit I can make. So we started with an idea you have to combine some kind of a center or a corporation that you can combine all the products from several producers, small producers in Indonesia, but also assist them with the legal requirements, the formalities, the administration requirements. For that thing, I have contacted the university in Semarang, Unica, and they help entrepreneurs with legal formalities. But the other problem was they are fit to export. They can do the requirements, but the cost for the transportation to the products with a web shop, it takes a lot of time from Indonesia and it's very expensive. If you want to do it reliable by DHL, it costs about 500,000 rupiahs to 1 kilogram. So we actually need a depot here in Europe or in the Netherlands to ship the product from Indonesia here and then sell it through a web shop through the whole of Europe. But you have to be able to send the articles directly and within 24 hours or maybe 2 days to the customer. That is the bottleneck, because it has no use in promoting Indonesian products if takes a long time before, if people want to order them, that it takes a long time before it gets here. And if you buy a product for 10 euros, but you have to pay 35 euros in shipping costs, nobody will buy it. So that is a problem I encountered, and I don't know what the solution will be. It's somebody who has an idea.
May I speak, Mr. Moderator?
Yeah, of course. It's an opening session. Feel free.
Right. Okay. Richard, how are you? It's been a long time not to see you.
Yes,
Right,
it is
I
a
might have-
lockdown. And,
Yes.
But we use this time to organize by internet.
Sure,
So I have a lot
sure.
of contacts with universities, etc. But
Yes.
this is still the same product what we encounter every time.
Perhaps I have an idea. This is the problem when it comes to the automotive industry over the last, let's say, 30 years ago. So that's why the Japanese came with the just-in-time logistic system. So basically, what you can do, let's say, copying from the just-in-time system, lean productions, there is no zero waste. We call it a muda muramure in Japanese. So you don't have to think about the logistic cost. So you can create a demand, but after that, based on that demand, you sort of forecast how many months, and you don't have to put all of your logistic, all of your inventory in a warehouse. So in that case, you don't have to create, let's say, a long-term logistic. You just create a temporary logistic depot in the Netherlands. You have to look at the just-in-time production system, where all the Japanese car manufacturers and the past, they are very difficult to ship over their car, particularly in sort of Southeast Asia, because of the logistic. And then they create with a just-in-time system. And we can talk about that later, if you like. The system might be a good solution for you, so you don't have to end up piling up all of your stock, particularly when you talk about furniture. It's such a heavy thing, and not many people just want to buy, okay, like this, I want to buy this. It takes time for them to think, okay, perhaps 3 months or 4 months. Oh, right, the recent one, this is the case. I bought a piano. It's a big piano, okay? But the supplier said, from Yamaha, they said, it will take at least 3 or 4 months to ship to your door. And I said, okay, why? Fine, but why? Why it takes such a long time? Because of our just-in-time system. In Europe, we provide with this, but all the other parts came from, particularly from Japan. So perhaps that you should learn from that.
Okay. Prof. Rao,
Yeah,
would you
then-
like to give a comment?
Yeah, well, as I said, I'm a researcher. I don't deal with many of the practicalities, but one thing I don't know if you've heard about, for example, if you're in the province of Brabant, if you heard about something called the BOM, the Brabantse Ontwikkelingsmaatschappij. These are organizations, intermediary organizations that one of their things is to get international businesses to in this case the North Brabant region, and they may be able to help you set up such a system, or to at least tell you how to go about it. That's what I could say at this point, I think.
Okay. So thank you. So we'll continue for the last question by Kinata. So Kinata, can you ask directly to the speaker? Hello, Kinata? Still with us? No, I believe she's not here. So the question, okay.
Still here, but she has microphone issue, I guess. Yeah, it's in the chat column. So just
Okay, so I will just ask, yeah. So maybe this is for Budesi. Do you have any stats of how long a foreign startup, example from Indonesia, have to sustain self-funding, considering no subsidy support, before having a livable or stable income? Or it's
Well,
open for anyone to answer.
Right, yes. When you talk about how long, to what extent, how long? So, business is unpredictable. So you cannot say it's going to be a kick-off within 5 or 10 years. So particularly with this pandemic situation where financial does matter. So I would like to say there is no linear process towards how to make startup into a scale up or into a mature company. But if you try at least 5 years, the first 5 years will be very, very crucial. So if you look at, I just want to mention in the Netherlands, they have a Dutch Startup Association, DSA. And within DSA, they spill over based on the cities. So Amsterdam, there's an Amsterdam startup. There is a Rotterdam ecosystem for the startup as well. And there is a high-tech startup. And most of them, they have the same message. The first 5 years are very crucial because this is the phase where you can settle with your financial regulation and also your law. And also the most important is marketing. You come up with the great ideas with a great product or services, but nobody wants to buy that. So, you know, within, let's say 5 months, you just fire it, you just bankrupt. And if you look at the startup that I mentioned so far, each of them, they have a long history for failure. And then they come up with a new startup again, and they never give up. And related to Mr. Henke's Kurniawan questions, when you talk about digital startup, most of the startup in the Netherlands, they are doing not B2C, they are doing B2B. So basically what they are doing, mostly they are providing, they call it as a SaaS company, software as a service. They provide this service, for example, TomTom, or for example, there's a small startup from Eindhoven, but they provide, let's say to Tesla. You know, Tesla has a factory here in North Brabant. They provide the part of the engine to connect the electrical things, you know what I mean? So they are doing SaaS company. And if I see from Indonesian, I just want to mention Indonesian context now, most of the startup, they are merely focused on fintech, financial technology. But there's a danger there because in Indonesia, the IPR, the data protection, and then the internet connections, and then the regulation, if something goes wrong, only OJK as the let's say government who has to deal with that. And I've seen so many cases from Indonesian fintech, they sell the data from the customer, whereby here in Europe, you have to deal with the GDPR, General Data Protection Right. Before you deal with us, there is a concern, there's a disclaimer, can we share or would you like to deal with your IPR thing? So everything is protected. And in Indonesia, talking about the transport and consumerism, Gojek, and no, they are not a unicorn already. They become a company because they have IPO. But if you look at the environmental things, less care to the nature and everything. Education, you have a Ruang Guru, you have, I don't know, other things, but those things are great actually. Indonesia is ideal ecosystem compared to other ASEAN countries. In Singapore, when you talk about talent, they just provide a lot of supply. They just provide a lot of startup, but who will buy? Because it's such a small market. It's a country and a city. But in Indonesia, you have a lot of demands, can be a great market for you. And it is up to you now, the producer, to match, to find the necessity. What can you sell? What can you produce? And then this is our duty as a scientist or a government to create this kind of an ecosystem. And in Malaysia, it's 50-50. But I think Indonesia is the market in Indonesia for becoming an ecosystem for startup, not talking about scale up, is similar to Vietnam. I think that's it from me.
Okay. Any other response from the speaker for the last question?
Yes, I can briefly respond to that. I mean, easier said than done, of course, but it helps if you are a starting entrepreneur, if the entrepreneur, the business is not your only source of income. So if you would have a part-time job that you can at least use the income from the part-time job to pay the bills, or if you come to the Netherlands with your partner, that one of you has at least a part-time job to provide for the basic income, to provide the bills, and that gives you some space to grow your business, because that will take time. If you set up the business in the Netherlands, connect to the Indonesian community. As we said, there's so many Indonesians here. Make sure you get networked. Word of mouth is a great way of getting your product out there. And if you are in any particular city, there are always local business networks. Make sure you connect to them, because they can help you, to get the do's and don'ts right for your particular business.
Okay. I believe that's a really nice takeaway message for everyone. So I have a final question. Maybe Budesi can help us to make it clear. So what do you think, Ibu Desi? Is it possible for Indonesian digital startup to grow big in the Netherlands? And what is your takeaway message?
Yes, for sure. I mean, never say never. And the opportunities is there, as long as you do your homework. And Pak Hari already mentioned, if you haven't got any accountant, this is a good time. I don't know whether it's a familiarity in Indonesia, but here in the Netherlands, if you want to be a startup, at least you must be aware of the legal, of the accounting things, and then the business operational. So yes, do your homework. And if you don't know how to do that, feel free to contact the H Consulting, and I'm going to be there, and we're going to be there to help you out. The opportunity is endless. Particularly, we have a Brexit. Forget about the UK. Focus on the Netherlands. Focus on the Schengen, and the Netherlands is the hub for the European gateway. And as Professor Rutten mentioned, you feel similarity here, not just for their culture, but also for makan-makan. But also, we share the history. So for the Dutch mentality, Indonesian people or Indonesian product, hopefully, will be easier than other countries. And particularly for the digital startup, for the computing things. Oh yes. Every day I've seen so many jobs. That's what I call digital talent. They're looking for digital talent. And they're also looking for startup. And I've mentioned some of the sectors that they are interested in. We can help you from there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So thank you, Budesi. And Pak Hari, do you have a takeaway message for us that wants to invest in Netherlands? In startup, of course.
Yes. Well, most important thing is you know what you are, you know what your strength, you know what's your weakness, you know which market you want to serve, and you have to make plans. So because without plans, it could be difficult. But I think this is one of the most basic questions you should ask yourself before you open a business, because if you open a business, you have to put all your effort to grow your business, because the business depends on your effort. That would be my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you to all speakers, Ibu Desi, Prof. Rul, and Pak Hari for the nice talk today. As this is our very first, many will come, for the organizer. And we hope that all of the participants has enjoyed the 1.5 hour of session. And I see also in the chat, so if you need more information or contact with the consultancy, please contact to Han Harlan. It is there. And well, that is a wrap from us. And thank you again from me as your moderator, and I will give it back to the organizer. Mas Erwin?
Yes, I'm here. Yeah, Mas Awal, will you wrap up all the session? Okay, I will just pick up for the organizer. thank you for everyone. It was a fun and it was insightful for us. And this is only the beginning. I think we have a lot of homework to connecting startup between Dutch and Netherlands. So it will be great if we have strong and sustainable connection, and we will welcome you in our next event. And we hope we can make an impact to bring much connected economy between Dutch and Netherlands. That's all from me. So have a nice day for everyone. See you in next event. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Pak Ari, Mas Erwin,
Yeah. See you.
Bu Desi, Abdul,
See you.
Kang Sidi, thank you.
Sami-sami, brother.